Good afternoon, everyone. So in a sneaky attempt to get all my friends to attend this session, last week I made a Facebook announcement on food memories, and I began it with phantom cigarettes. Now, to all the children of the 80s over here, how many of you remember those rather dodgy sugar cigarettes with this cunning orange tip at the end, so it looked like the real thing, so that 8-year-olds could stand around and talk in circles and be cool. So this started an unexpected memory avalanche among my friends. And people started talking about all the goodies of their childhood. Ice lollies that came in plastic tubes and turned your tongue into 50 shades of purple. Cheap, chewy pineapple toffee. Do you all remember Pan Pasand candy? What were they thinking? Mango Bite, which apparently the FDA declared unsuitable for consumption a few years ago. Lacto King, Rola Cola, Coconut toffee. Now, what's interesting is all of us have come a long way. Indian sweets have come a long way. And now when you look back in retrospect, none of these were particularly remarkable as sweets. They weren't very nuanced. The flavors were not clever. It was basically just sugar, essence, and color. But we're all really sentimental about these childhood food and snacks. And the question is why? And why do they bring back such strong, palpable memories? And how do they affect the way that we eat today? So to discuss that, I've got chefs Kunal Kapoor, Manu Chandra, and Aditya Bal, who are going to be deconstructing food memories during this session. Now, you probably already recognize their faces because all three of them are prominent in India's contemporary food scene. They've also all got very different and diverse backgrounds, which is why I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. Aditya, would you like to start?
Afternoon, everyone. My kind of background with cookery started not too many years ago. About 6 or 7 years ago, I was in another profession, started meddling in the kitchen one afternoon and have been hooked ever since. I'm largely self-taught and have worked my way through a bunch of restaurants, and whoever was kind of kind enough and sometimes, risky enough to kind of give me a chance in the kitchen. So being kind of self-taught, I've had to pick up all of the kind of nuances and techniques and little details of cookery. And it's actually cooking that fascinates me a lot more. My whole approach to food is from that very kind of technical, technique-driven side of it. So I grew up in Kashmir, and Kashmir, as you all know, is a very exotic land full of lots of exotic food. I have plenty of memories from my childhood and from growing up. So I'm really happy to be here. I hope we can have a nice, interesting session about food memories.
Hi. Vanakkam, Chennai. Vanakkam means, right? I just asked her. So am I on the right page? I hope so. So they should have responded, na? Usually if I say good afternoon, somebody tells you good afternoon, I'll say good afternoon. So if I say Vanakkam, what would you say? Thank you for telling me that you're alive and not slept off. So, and that's how we have to talk, huh? It has to be two-way, and we're going to have a lot of fun. And before we begin, just a small introduction. I'm Kunal. I'm a chef. And last 15 years, I've been into this trade. And I've been loving this every day of my life. I mean, when I started the first 5 years, I never liked what I was doing. And I think that was the biggest mistake of my life for the first 5 years, to be in something which you don't like. And I didn't have the courage to opt out of it. And I sticked on, and one day somebody just told me, why do you resist kitchens and cooking so much, and yet you are into the trade? Why not just open your arms and love it? I actually did that, and ever since then I've been enjoying. I've not been working actually. I've been just following my passion, newfound passion. I had a beautiful childhood. I had a very typical Punjabi family bringing up. It's a very hilarious family that I've got. God bless my family. Every one of them is a character and so on. They all think they are chefs. Punjabis have a very big problem of becoming doctors of whatever. Pet kharab ho gaya, kha lo, khansi ho gayi, wo kha lo, nahi aise kar lo, nahi. सुबह लस्सी नहीं पीते, सुबह पीते शाम को नहीं पीते, वो अलग बात है, रात को दही खा रहे होंगे. So, well, they have these fundas that I grew up with, and you know, I think it's a beautiful platform today that Shonali called us on. Just, you know, for most of you, probably I'll be just talking, but for me, it'll be like revisiting my childhood and all the uncles and aunts and all the big chefs and doctors that I grew up with. And it's going to be fun. Yeah, thank you.
Good afternoon. Well, I think I got interested in cooking. Oh, sorry. My name is Manu Chandra. Let me start with that. I probably got interested in cooking because my mother wasn't the best cook. And every time she'd offer that she'd cook, I'd say, no, it's okay. I'll step in. And I guess I became a chef because everybody didn't want me to become one. So belligerence and pig-headedness would go so well with being a chef I hadn't really planned for, but it just panned out that way. And now, of course, it's a seamless fit. Of course, we are all in our profession driven by memories of food or foods we remember. Or, you know, before that, I have to say a disclaimer that, you know, the downside of talking about food anywhere in any platform is that almost everybody is an expert on it, and everybody has a very strong opinion. So I hope that you contribute equally in what we are saying, and I think we should come up with something which well, unravels it a little. Yes, you know, a lot of memories, and we were just having this discussion before we stepped up on stage about how many of those memories still hold true or strong for a lot of us. And I seem to be of a slightly contrarian opinion when I say that some of those memories, even in my mind, are a little overrated, because while you have a great memory of it and there's an emotional bond and an emotional connect to those, if I have the same thing today, I may have a completely different opinion of it. And that's where food memories have been a big driver, both in the negative and the positive sense. And I think we can start from there.
Yeah, well, one thing we were all discussing was, since confession's always the best way to break the ice, maybe each of you can tell us about a childhood and suitably lowbrow snack that's morphed into a comfort food. And I was just doing a random sampling, and you know, people said Maggi noodles with hot and sweet ketchup, or corn puffs, and specifically the kind that turn your fingers orange, and that pink cotton candy from the beach. And for me, and I find for a lot of people, including a lot of chefs, milk bikkies with tea. So, your turns.
Suitably, what was it? Snack? I'm trying to remember. Okay, so growing up in Kashmir, everything was a little different somehow. We did get the Kiss Me toffees. I remember those. Does anyone remember those? Those little, yes, Parle Kiss Me toffees. They're elaichi. Lots of elaichi in them. Okay, we used to eat a lot of those. But I remember chestnuts in the winter, which in Kashmir you get just as like, you know, off the coal. I remember those, and one of my earliest memories is actually of something called a kilari, which is this cheese. It's kind of dried, and then it's cooked on this little stove, and it stretches, and they put like chili and salt on it. So actually for you know, pretty exotic stuff now that I think about it, and I went back to Kashmir after many years and had it all over again, and it was exactly the same.
Probably the most exotic, given the fact that these two are both city boys, no?
Yes, yes. I grew up actually in Gulmarg, so we were always eating things that were like strawberries and stuff like that. And if I can call that a cheap growing up snack, I'm very fortunate actually, yeah, to have grown up like that. I'm sure a lot of us over here as well have grown up with some unusual things on a daily basis. Lots of corn, lots of bhutta, and yeah. That was my little cheap snack. And the Kiss Me toffees, somehow I remember those. And the little orange ones. Does anyone remember those orange toffees? The round ones, purely round? Yes? You used to get 10 for a rupee, I think. Or maybe more. 25p for one. Yes, yes,
And
exactly.
no
That's
packaging
precise.
at all, right? It just,
That's
you just get it and
expensive.
wrap it up in newspaper.
Yeah.
The kidney-shaped ones, even we had them in the city.
Yes, yes, those. What are those kidney-shaped ones?
Yeah, kidney shape नहीं थी वो orange wedge
They
था.
were shaped like orange.
Orange
It
wedge.
wasn't kidney shape.
Sugar powder and powdered sugar.
Kidney shaped. That's like talking like a Punjabi again.
Kidney shaped.
Kidney.
Rajma type.
ज़्यादा ना खाओ kidney खराब हो जाएगी. That's what we used to get.
What were yours for that?
Well, you know, I grew up in a joint family, so, and I'm the only boy in the distant family, all girls. So, what used to happen that my grandparents, every time that report card used to come, they had, you know, given us a complete, they had declared that everybody who gets a A plus or B plus will get a 5-star. At that time, I remember dairy milk used to come with a small bar, itni si, 2 rupees ki hoti thi. And 5-star used to be almost about $5-7 or $10, which by that standards at that time, and people will relate of my age and further, that it used to be one of the most expensive chocolates. And mind you, uske alawa there was no other chocolates. So for a child, for a kid, 5-star meant the world. You're gonna get a 5-star. It used to be like a real high, 5-star khayenge. So as the time used to come for you know, every semester, trimester, finals, guess what? I never got that 5-star. So my sisters, they all would get 5 stars or A plus pe 2 milti thi, and they were kind enough to share, but I always wanted to earn it. So I started working very hard. And when the time would come, it was time कि मैं अपनी report card कहीं छुपा ही दूँ, रहने दो, मतलब फिर नहीं आया. So it's gone again. So for me, that 5-star had been always you know, elusive for me. It wasn't that from whatever little coins that I would collect and put it in my piggy bank, वो जो घड़े का आता था, and buy the 5-star, the fun of holding the 5-star, earning a 5-star was something which I could never get. And I always inside my heart, I used to say, probably I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough. And that's one childhood memory that has stuck along with me till date. And whenever I'm a little depressed, I'm a little low, I eat a chocolate. For me, that's any chocolate. Now 5-star is no more, but yeah, any chocolate. And that is one food memory, if you can say, or a snack memory that has always been part of my life. I look at a 5-star, I get thrilled. I look at a chocolate, I want to eat it. So I'm a chocolate addict. I have a small piece of chocolate every day. I have to have it. It makes me feel good. And that somewhere throughout my career has kind of helped me. Every day I eat a piece of chocolate and I think I've done my best. I think I've earned it.
Now, Manu, I saw you stashing a Grand Sweets packet just before we came quietly in the author's lounge. And you were in New York for some time, right, when you were studying. Were there any things that you carried all the way over there?
No, because I think, mercifully for me, America is the center for all potato chip manufacturing, and that has always been my weakness. Give me a bag of chips and I'll shut up for a very long time. But I think, of course, you know, Aditya was just mentioning that he grew up in Kashmir, we grew up in Delhi, we were complete city slickers, and a joint family and a complete mix. I mean, quite akin to the Addams family. So I had the Tamilian part, I had the Punjabi part, and I had the UP part. And my country cousins would all come visiting in the summer, and my brothers and I would just watch wide-eyed in complete horror as their food habits unfolded. But each one had their own comfort zone. So you'd have people eating Mari biscuits with copious amounts of ketchup. My UP cousins would be diluting Fatafat in Coca-Cola and drinking it like the world was coming to an end. So, of course, I mean, they're their food memories, and I still shudder to think how they cling on to those, but you just had the most bizarre eating habits that you were exposed to. And we were very happy with Maggi noodles and chips. And we tried, we attempted, and we tried very hard to like the things that our cousins used to eat, but it just didn't add up. And I think horror and food memory for me also go hand in hand, because you just saw all this, but I think comfort for us was being able to get something like Kunal just mentioned that was not easily accessible. So, you know, everything which was aspirational became something that you'd seek out. Whether it was good or not was irrelevant at that point. If you couldn't get it and you did manage to get it once in a while, that was like the go-to thing.
Yeah, I was doing some research on this, and they said one reason these memories are so strong is because as children, we tend to associate them with good times, with a holiday, with a family trip, with a reunion, and things like that. Also, and we were discussing this, that a lot of it has to do with our sense of smell, because after all, what we think of as taste is very often actually smell. And if you put food in your mouth and you close your nose, you won't really get any of the flavors till you open your nose. Now, olfactory memory tends to be a combination of different things. So let's go back to your first Phantom cigarette in your classroom. And when you eat it now, you get this memory of not just the way it smelled and the way it tastes, but you can smell the chalk from the classroom and the detergent from the clothes and all those other memories. So it's really a set of things that come flooding back. And that's why it's so powerful, because it's not just about taste. Additionally, and this I thought was interesting, apparently a lot of these memories are formed at a specific time, and that's between the age of 6 to 10. And that's when you form your first food memories, because that's the first time you actually link a smell and a taste to a thing or an event. And now a lot of chefs, and especially now retro food is getting very stylish. Do all of you think it's actually a huge advantage you have, because you can immediately connect with a diner by just recreating some food from their childhood? Manu, since you've got the restaurant. And I've noticed you do some retro food. You've got a drink with guava and chili powder,
yes,
a cocktail.
Yeah, well, across the different restaurants, I think we do have certain things. Of course, one of them we have in green mango and cumin and rock salt cocktail, actually. Who knew you could take ampanna and add vodka to it and suddenly you have a winning combination? But there you go, see, it's old memories that sort of come to the fore. But yeah, it's very interesting that you mentioned olfactory memory being extremely relevant, because the smell is a huge driver sometimes. And you can't taste without smell, like you mentioned. You know, smell is practically 70 to 80% of taste, because your tongue can only register sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami. Umami being the fifth well, it's not new anymore, it's always been around, but the fifth taste. And it's interesting, I was at Apparao Galleries yesterday for the dinner, and I walk in, and of course there's a bunch of intellectuals and writers and painters and artists, and I say, chicken chettinad. And somebody looks at me like, what? I said, dear, chicken chettinad, there's chicken chettinad for dinner. And they said, how can you tell? I said, I can smell it. I can't smell anything. And it's true, you know, there's some people who just have an instant connect to smell. Of course, I work in it professionally, so it's I probably smell things more than I see them. But there is an instant connect very often, and we try to capture that as far as possible in commercial ventures. It's very important to have things smelling a certain way and looking a certain way, because those are the two things that you register first before you even eat something. And that's very true of what you said. We've done it in our beverages, we've done it with some of the food, and it makes people nostalgic. And that's, well, besides being a great selling point, it's also sort of endears the establishment or the menus to the customer, and they want to come back to that comfort zone or that sense of familiarity. It's not always novelty that drives it.
Do you get a lot of guests who come to you and say, I want this particular thing because it reminds me of my past?
Yeah, I mean, not very long back, I had a request in the restaurant. A guest came in and asked for jowar or bajre ki khichdi. So my restaurant is in Gurgaon, and he was a Haryanvi guy, and he's a very successful entrepreneur, settled in US. He had come back to India for some work, and he wanted bajre ki khichdi. So, and I've got a fairly young team of guys who are working for me. So they said, Chef, you haven't really, what the hell is bajre ki khichdi kaise banegi, kya hota hai? Well, tell him it'll take time, and thankfully we have bajra. So we can cook, but this is going to take time. They said, he's saying take 2 hours, no problem. I want to eat bajre ki khichdi. I've come from the US. I used to eat as a child. So I was like, okay, don't worry, it's simple, yeah, just boil it, haan karo, isko boil kar liya, ab tadka lagao, desi ghee ka, generous, upar green chili, ye wo, ho gaya. So after 2.5 hours, he was served. And this was in his room. So the guy actually came down and like, I want to speak to the chef. So by that time my team had left, I was in the restaurant, so I was just having a coffee with the manager and I said, okay, yeah, tell me, yeah, who cooked the bajre ki khichdi? I just said, yeah, I did it. Why? What happened? Something wrong? And I saw that he was a bit disturbed. His eyes were already a little moist and he started crying. And I was like, lag gayi ab to. Literally, lag gayi. Kuch problem ho gayi, isko मुंह में कुछ कंकड़ आ गया, या नमक ज़्यादा है, तेल खराब है, इतनी बुरी लगी, रो रहा है कि मतलब क्या सर्व किया, रूम से उठ के आ गया. I'm gone. He's like, I'm so happy, and he's crying. And I'm like, what? मतलब he's crying and he's saying he's so happy. So मुझे लगा पता नहीं why this melodrama, मतलब क्यों कर रहे हो यार, अभी हम शो थोड़ी ना कर रहे हैं, टीवी पे थोड़ी ना आ रहे हैं, छोड़ दो melodrama. So the guy just says that, chef, this is exactly the way my mom used to cook. I said, I'm glad I could cook the same way. I'm happy. I was a little worried. And he started crying more and more. Kehta, no, you don't understand. I was like, what? I settled him down. What's the trouble? Have some water. Why? He's almost choking. He's like, I went to US long back for becoming something. And in the process, I neglected my parents here. They wanted me, my mom, my father. I used to make trips, but wo tabhi hota tha whenever I had a business trip and I would come and chip in 2 days and just stay with them for the heck of it and then go back. So my mother passed away 3 months back, and I was there. Now I just came back. I remember because I'm still dealing with myself that I'm successful, I have money, my mother passed off, my father refuses to go to US with me. And I just thought I'll have something simple. I remember because I'm from Haryana, my mama used to cook bajre ki khichdi for me. And trust me, it's the same way that you've cooked. It just reminds me of my mother. It just reminds me how much my mother used to love me and how much of such a big jerk and idiot I've been that I've left her when she needed me. All I have is this khichdi. Please pack every bit of it that you've created. I would like to take it back. If you can freeze it, at least I'll go back, have a spoon a day and feel that my mom is closer to me and she's made it for me. And I was like, is it really happening? Is this like, is he come from Star Plus? Kahan se aaye? Matlab, it's not real. Matlab, and I was like, I could empathize with him. I could feel his pain. I could feel that he's in big remorse. And food was the only comforting thing for him. And what he carried back is that मेरी मम्मी ने अचार डाला था, वो घर पे है. This is what I'm carrying. She's gone. But उनका जो डाला हुआ अचार है, I'll have that. I know this is probably the closest that I can get to what she used to cook. And this achar would, till whatever time it lasts, it'll be with me like the best time, like me being with my mom. So there you go. What do you make out of this? And I'm like, wow, food really has an impact on you. You just get awakened to that fact at some point of your time in life and relate to it. And it's just amazing how it leaves a lasting impression.
Aditya, you travel a lot for your food shows, yep. And you tend to go to villages and to do, you're recreating old recipes. Do you think there's something that ties all comfort food together from across the country, or is it completely diverse?
No, I absolutely kind of believe through like about, I think, 3 or 4 years of traveling to different parts that if there's one thing that we all agree on as Indians in this country is food and our love for it, right? It unifies us. I've had conversations without understanding people, the language and how they, any of it. But when we sit down on the table and there's food from their homes, from their kitchens, from their childhood, everyone seems to generally come to some kind of agreement on how much we kind of love food and we connect with it. And I think we do a lot more here in our country, all over the world of course, but we have this tradition of kind of home cooking which is kind of carried on and continues to carry on a lot more. So we connect with it, everyone, whether it's south, north, east or west. You can have endless discussions. You can compare flavors. You can go from village to village and see the kind of regional little variations in the way spices are used. So I think we're a nation of food crazy, food loving people, and I think it's incredible. I think that's we should have like a ministry of food, frankly. Just bringing everyone together and enjoying and sharing our love for food. Yeah, I think it's a great unifier for all of us.
Well, since we're at a literature fest and all of you obviously look like a really intellectual audience, let's talk about Jhumpa Lahiri's short story, Indian Takeout. And I don't know how many of you have read it, but in it her family she talks about how her parents have an old suitcase which they pack with spices after every trip to India, and they carry it back to Rhode Island in this desperate attempt to carry a taste of home to America. Now, any one of you who's traveled abroad or has children abroad probably know how this goes. You know, you pack something and you take it back with you because when you reach over there, you really want that taste of home. And so they carried the most random things, but now thanks to Turkish and Indian grocers, you don't need to take quite as much. But I think this was the 70s. So she says lentils, Ganesh mustard oil, lapchu tea, black skinned rice, food that was both legal and illegal. And in the story, she says, one year, my grandmother secretly tucked parwals, a vaguely squash-like vegetable, into the food suitcase. And my mother wept when she found them. So why are we so emotional about the food from our past? And they say how you can never really revisit your past. Are your memories very different from what the food actually tasted like? I know you've got an opinion on this.
Yeah, like I'd mentioned earlier, it's probably one of the most powerful emotional connectors there is, and that is the case with food and anything. I mean, you just mentioned Jhumpa Lahiri's, that excerpt over there. Any airport you travel to, and the loudest conversation or the fight that anyone would be having at customs would be an Indian, because they're not allowed to take the masala or the packet of whatever through. And it's aggressive, how can you not? It's food, it's not illegal. And, the guy sort of waves it off and says, okay, fine, you can go ahead with it. And it's true. And it's not only us as a culture, not only Indians as a culture, this is a global phenomenon. It's that one thing that makes us cling on to what we felt or feel is our security blanket. And that is that connection with food growing up or memories of it. However, contextually, I have to say that, and that's where, again, I disagree slightly, is that when contexts change, so do your perception of that memory. And you always cling on to something, or something, anything similar also reminds you of that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the exact same thing, but anything which is within that larger headspace, and this ties into the whole authenticity argument, where it doesn't have to be authentic to take you back to your childhood or to your grandmother's recipe or to that pickle that you once had. But that is, and it's subliminally sort of, in our DNA, it's ingrained in there, and it'll always draw us back. It makes you emotional. Not you, the Bajre ka khichdi fellow, but no, it makes me emotional, sometimes on the other side also. But yeah, it's just there. And there was another an anecdote which I'll actually come back to because that's connected with the next part of it. But it is, like I said, the most powerful memory there is that draws you to it.
Aditya, you were telling us about how food used to be so much more intricate, and especially when in all these royal kitchens. That's something that we're not at all connected with, right? But for the royal families, how different is it now?
Look, I think what I keep hearing from people when I travel to certain places, and we're discovering recipes and we're cooking on wood and things like this, mostly it's become a lifestyle change for most of us in our country, especially in our urban centers. We've lost a lot of our traditional cooking. I think food has got a lot to do with our identity, right? It's you can trace history through it, you can trace culture, you can trace trade, commerce. I mean, I often kind of look at a dish or you see something traditional and it is actually like a photograph or a representation of a bunch of things that have happened well in the past. I mean, it could have been 500 years in the past. For instance, the Portuguese, them bringing things like chilies to us, and the Mughals bringing technique and refinement. And so mostly what I gather is that it is our kind of changing lifestyle that has, drawn us away from a lot of the more elaborate, old school kind of cooking.
And it's really difficult to define what is authentic, because all
Yeah.
three chefs say there is no such thing as authentic,
I think
because
so, yeah.
it changes all the time, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I think
so.
Whenever you talk about authentic, you can actually date it back. The moment you say, Purane zamane mein hota tha, and you can't date it back, then you are just fluking it, right? It's a fluke. You don't know about it. You can't prove it. You can't vouch for it. So I have a very simple example. In fact, I shared it with you in the morning. For me, for my father, let's say, for my father, his memory, if I had talked to him, would be what his mother would used to cook, like my grandmom, right? Now, my grandmom, pre-partition from Lahore, she had a certain way of cooking, and that is what my father grew up eating, and that's what is maa ke haath ka khana, and that's what authentic. Take anything. Now, my mom, as per my grandmom, my mom doesn't know how to cook. Typical Punjabi, tenu kuch nahi aanda. She's a very typical saas, my dadi. She still is. She's very nagging about mama. So she says, you don't know anything. ऐसे नहीं ऐसे बनता है. राजमा में ये नहीं ये, कड़ी में ये नहीं ये, ऐसे. And my mom is like, मैंने तो ऐसे ही आंदा, मतलब मुझे ऐसे आता आप बना सकते हो आप बना लो. So she has to leave it. My grandmom has to leave it to my mom whatever she cooks. So what my mom cooks is completely different what my grandmother used to cook. She can't cook anymore. She's still with us. I'm so blessed. But I remember she cooking. She was very different in her style of cooking. The same thing when mummy used to make, it was clear कि mummy ने बनाया, dadi ने बनाया. Now come to my wife. She doesn't like to cook, first of all. Then she doesn't like to cook authentic, or sorry, Indian way, not authentic. She likes to do the pastas of the world. She likes to do a nice salad. She likes to do a small chocolate dessert. So my kid, for him, maa ke haath ka khana is pasta. So for him, there is no memory of Indian food, roti, rajma, nothing. He survives on pastas, pizzas, everything under the sun which you find in the modern day. Coming back to authenticity. So my wife, when she cooks, let's say Indian kabhi, her tadka ka perception is completely different. Completely. Tel ghee to hota hi nahi, light. So for my child, when he's going to be 80, 90, he's going to tell his grandson that, अरे बेटा authentic में तो बेटा तेल ही नहीं जाता था. So because that's his food memory now. और हमारे टाइम में दादी कहती थी इतना घी ऊपर तैरता है. मम्मी थोड़ी बचत करने वाली थी तो उनका इतना हो गया. Wife because of health reasons zero हो गया. So I mean if you see all the generations for a dal tadka, the ghee is just vanished, and that's authentic, by the way. If you look at this by the standards of how my son is going to judge after 60 or 70 years. So what is authentic? The ingredients have changed. Imagine the tomatoes जो आते थे सिर्फ summer में आते थे, and you could bite off. It used to be खट्टा टमाटर. Now you bite a tomato, it's dry inside. There is no tomato taste at all. So the ingredients have changed. The spices have changed. There were never a concept of a packet में मसाले मिल रहे हैं जैसे MDH of the world or whatever Everest. And no offense to anyone, मतलब अभी क्या होता है? पहले क्या होता था? Everything used to वो ओखली में कुटवाते थे या कनक लेके you go to the miller and he would take out fresh आटा. अभी सब आशीर्वाद है. So everything is completely changed. So right from your ingredients to your availability to what you want to eat has completely changed, and it's just reflecting in the way you cook. पहले मोटे बर्तन में तांबे के पीतल के बर्तन होते थे मेरे घर में ओल्ड टाइम में. अभी स्टील है, अभी टेफ्लॉन है, अभी इंडक्शन आ गई. पहले हमारा वो फूको वो जो होता था दैट होम चूल्हा होता था वो केरोसिन वाला हमारे पास बहुत टाइम तक था. गैस नहीं आई थी, उस पे अलग बनता था. So everything changes. The same recipe kind of goes through so much of twists and turns, and yet we call it authentic. So there is nothing known as authentic, by the way. Mughlai khana, that's the biggest blunder I've ever seen. Delhi ka khana, Mughlai khana. Mughlai khana, खूब सारे बादाम, खूब सारे नट्स, खूब सारे ये, खूब सारे वो. अरे बाबा ऐसा नहीं होता होगा, जरा से थोड़ा होता हो. मतलब so these are these perceptions that that's authentic and this is not authentic. There is nothing known as whatever you cook today for the coming generation, that is going to be authentic. You start adding oregano in your rajma, that will be authentic for them now.